What's going on, guys? Let's get a look at this GM2 by Giant Mouse Knives. If you don't know what Giant Mouse is, right there's their logo. So it is a mid-tech company by Jasper Vox and Jens Anso. And they got together and they did a collaboration on, I think, 3 or 4 models now, with more in the pipeline. So they are not producing these knives, as far as I know, in their own shops. I don't know if they're putting the final edge or not. Originally, that's how mid-tech started, right? It was, we have the knife produced elsewhere, and then usually, originally, as I understood mid-tech, now I know that's a very blurry subject now, the maker would at least put the edge on the knife. So I'm not quite sure if that's what's going on here. I do know that my research shows, I haven't been there myself, but they are made in Maniago, Italy, by Viper Knives, Viper Technocut, in Italy. So if you know that area, that portion of the world is known for their exquisite cutlery. And this is one of the knives coming out of there. I guess kind of like, of course, this is going to have to come out for this review, right? Like the Taichung Taiwanese Spydercos, right? Kind of an area known for cutlery. So, while we have that out there, let's go ahead and bring this out. I do want to get into the more specifics of this knife, but I couldn't help but to notice how these folding Bowie knives here kind of have this same flat portion here, and then they drop down on the rear, and then of course for your clip point that makes up the Bowie. And now of course the Spyderco Bowie is not quite what I would call a Bowie shape, but I guess if they call it that, we'll go with it. They know more than I do. But can you see the resemblance here? Flat, and then it drops down here, and then the clip. I guess that's the characteristics of any folding Bowie might have that, but I thought that was kind of neat, and they are about the same size. This is not a comparison video of these guys, but if anybody has this and you might be interested in this, or you have this and you're interested in this, good size comparison here. So, all right, so this actually is a really nice knife. When I originally took it out of the box and I flipped it open, I noticed 2 things. You're probably noticing the same thing I did immediately, right? What do you see? Look at that thin liner lock. I mean, relatively thin, right? It's nice and chamfered, and it does have like a little bit of jimping on the inside there. But I was like, wow, this is a pretty full-size knife right here. Let's see it in my, I'd say I wear a large glove. I always say medium to large, but really I wear a large glove. So you see it fits all 4 fingers in there. It is definitely not a small knife. I believe handle thickness is about 0.56 is what the specs say online. I didn't measure it, but I can tell you because of the contour that is on these handles, it does get a little thick around the edges here. So it's a nice full-size knife, you know, and you see this thickish blade. I don't have the blade thickness specs on hand, but we can put it up against something like a Strider, and you can see that's an SNG Strider. So you can see fairly thick blade. Now, if you're like me, you're also noticing how beautifully finished this knife is. Check out the round spine here, and then the flat portion with the jimping, not back here, but up here. I thought that was a pretty nice touch. And then also this blade for the clip, for the swedge part, for the Bowie clip, comes up just a little bit. I think it makes it look a little bit more aggressive than, say, something that is flat all the way across like that. I know it's a tiny little detail, but I noticed it in the profile immediately. Just this little portion right here kicks up. It kind of grabs your thumb like a glove when you're up here in the front finger choil, and it just feels really at home when you're choked up like this. So really, you can tell that two top tier makers of today's times collaborated on this design. When I close that knife too, I want you to notice this. Look how when it's closed, this completely sits flush with the bottom guard here. And then when it's opened, it's completely flush there too, which of course it's supposed to be. But not a lot of knives get that perfect when it's closed, which means that this pivot is dead center of this guard. Just a lot of forethought went into this design. Also, you're getting this full-size knife. I'm going to get back to this thin liner. I will tell you that I didn't have any lock rock at all, no wiggle. I cut down some big thick cardboard sheets at work. You know how sometimes you'll cut like a layer cardboard, and then you have 2 or 3 stacked up like that, and then you will rip through all of those just to maybe see if you can do it. Anyways, I did that with this knife, and usually that will put a lot of pressure on the stop pin up here and also on the lock bar. And sometimes on a cheaper knife, well, I don't have any cheaper knives here to show you, that lock bar will actually walk its way over. Do I? No, I don't have any knives here, unfortunately. Anyway, sometimes you'll see that on a cheaper knife, which really speaks volumes about how well this stop pin here is anchored and the tolerances. You have to pardon me, I'm still playing with my lighting, still trying to figure out my tripod placement and all that. So what you'll notice here is there's no metal liner on the show side at all. And then on the liner lock side, you can see how it's milled inside there. And it sits inside this very beautiful carbon fiber, right? And you can see how the liner sits in there. So this stop pin is just anchored by shoulders that are here and here in that thick carbon fiber handle. And then you can see how the tang actually wraps around the stop pin and just provides a very nice solid locking surface. And if you can get that stop pin engagement correct, then you can get the liner lock correct, then you won't have a lock wiggle. And then also when you cut, that's usually more of a testament to how well your stop pin is, more so than your liner lock, because all this pressure, the blade's kicking up, is all being transferred onto the stop pin. That's its function, right? So anyways, all around about saying that this knife is very well built. I was a little skeptical of this thin looking liner. I really was, but there is a lot of tension on it and it locks up nice and tight. The knife does have a nice detent, although if you're looking for one of those monster detents that will, let's see, you see how it's a nice detent, it really is. But if you're looking for one of those monster detents, there is sometimes where if you try to pull this back, it won't quite flip all the way. You almost have to push button this, which, while we're here, let's check this out. In my opinion, this is the most perfect flipper shape and design that I've ever seen. I don't care so much about this jimping on top. That's why you would think that your finger is supposed to go up top here and you pull back, right? But you can see how it didn't quite deploy there. You have to keep in mind I have a lot of lights and a lot of things around me right now. But to me, it works more as a push button flipper. And you can see how that shape is forward. It's nicely contoured and rounded. So it's very comfortable just to push straight down on. Look how it's ramped in this way. And you're right at home pushing down on it. I also wanted you guys to see this detail here, where they chamfered the inside of the scales for, I guess, if you were doing a pullback flipper. Now, I have a little bit of a gripe with that, right? So that's, I guess, a little more comfy when your finger hits that portion right there. instead of hitting these square edges here. Do you see that? I know I'm having a little bit of trouble focusing. It's a detail. Most people would be all over it, and I'm not complaining about it. But what I found is when you're actually using this knife, that loosens up a little bit of the grip that you would have here. There's not quite as much traction. My thumb feels a little bit loose when I'm back here. Not that I had a problem, not that I slipped off and was going to cut myself, but I have the same issue, just for reference, maybe that won't bother you, with the CC SNG. And we are going to compare these knives because I do see a lot to compare. But do you see how thin this section is right here? That's kind of why if I recommend one SNG to somebody, it will be the Lego version. This carries better in my opinion, but the Lego version is actually better for use because you don't have quite this traction issue or the hot spot. I've showed that 100 times on my videos. So this is not that extreme, but you still have the same thing where I would have rather personally, just personally, not had that and just had it straight. Very, very minor nitpick, but I just wanted you guys to know where I'm sitting on that. While we're showing the flipper, notice how the choil and everything is rounded. Nicely satin finished. If Viper is making these knives for them, or at least this one, they did an awesome job. You don't see that too often. A rounded choil that leads into a rounded flipper tab. I want you to notice too how straight this jimping is. I know it sounds so silly to bring up, but I have had some lion steels from Maniago, Italy, that were just an absolute mess on the jimping. CRKT hijinks. You know what I'm saying? No issues here with that. Just really, really well made. So we've got these to compare. I want to get into this knife more specifically than comparing and contrasting these. Well, told you I'm still trying to figure out this amateur hour. No, I've got this new set, and I think once I get it all figured out, I'm going to love it. So you see the similarities here? Flat grind. A little more belly on this than on the SNG. Same thickness here, right? Choil up front. You've got the cutout here, cutout here. If you were to make this a clip point, man, they would really look a little more similar. You can see how the handle is different, but about the same size. So there you go. That is an SNG versus this. Please stick around. I have more to go over with this guy. I really like what they did here. I really do. I like the nicely contoured handle. I like that it has this milled pattern on it. It really reminds me of Wilson Combat, how they do, I guess they have like a run of mid-tech knives. And they have made some knives for Chris Reeve. And they have this like starburst pattern. Now this isn't quite as radical where it's coming in like this and then comes out and over like this. This is like a gradual sweeping texture. But I think it's really well done. I really enjoyed it. You see nice high quality carbon fiber. And we're going to get to that titanium pivot collar here shortly. And also this titanium backspacer, again, perfect jimping. Really nice. And we're also going to get to this one-piece milled titanium clip. So, I want to start first with this pivot collar. While we were up front of the knife, I should have talked about it when we were talking about the flipper and everything, and how well that this knife was seated and locked in. When I did those big heavy cuts and the liner didn't move over even a little bit. I can't tell you, I've had a lot of higher end knives that did walk over a little bit when you put a lot of pressure on them. They'll walk over. This one didn't. And it may scare some people because it is not lined on both sides. You see how I pointed out earlier, there's no steel liner under here at all. That's one of the reasons that this is a full-size knife and comes in at around 4 ounces. It is unbelievably lightweight, especially to be full-size. But that's due to the carbon fiber. Yeah. Not the liner on the other side. Very well nested inside there. It's great. Look what they also did up here. I have to tell you too, it is on bearings. I haven't taken it apart yet, and this is a loaner knife, so I'm not quite sure if I will. But it should have. If I see the way the rest of this knife is, maybe somebody can confirm. Maybe we'll take it apart real quick at the end of this video. Maybe I'll edit it in or something. But there should be a hardened steel washer that is with a little bit of girth on it, more so than a Spyderco flipper. Wah, wah. Spyderco flipper. Those washers are terrible. All right, the titanium pivot collar. My brain's like a squirrel, just all over the place. So this locks in the pivot really well into this carbon fiber. You know what I mean? It gives it a really nice anchor point. Where one of my critiques on the SNG is over the years of carrying and using and beating up on Sebenzas over the years, sometimes, usually most times, eventually this G10 will wobble out of round just a little bit. Now the SNG is saved from that because it has this through stop pin up here. But sometimes you'll get a little bit of like side to side, and that's mostly due to this G10 just wobbling out around a little bit. If this had a titanium pivot collar, maybe that wouldn't be the case. Anyways, I applaud their forethought here. And plus, it's just a gorgeous design, right? That's really high class when you see the titanium pivot collar that matches the titanium backspacer, which also serves a function, right? This titanium backspacer is how this like half piece milled liner is anchored. Do you see how this is anchored down into and ties into this thick titanium backspacer? So now that liner does not have to be the full size of this whole side of the knife here. It can be exactly what it needs to be. Do you see how it only comes up to about that locking bar. So I'd say inside here, it only comes up to about right here, comes back here, and then it swoops up and then ties in with this backspacer. I think that's very genius. It cuts down on the weight and also ties that in where it's the same strength, I would think, looking at it, to what it would be if it was a full length liner. Really, really well done. Really well done. So this knife has a lot of good going for it. If I didn't mention it, this is Bowler M390. And it cuts great, holds an edge great. I mean, it's nice. There's nothing to complain about. I love M390. I haven't resharpened it yet, so I can't give you any info on that. But it did hold an edge great, and it's still fairly sharp. You can see what it looks like to be a factory edge on it. And I know that Clay, Minnesota knife guy on Instagram, who let me borrow this knife, has carried and used this knife too. So it kind of says something, right? You see that factory edge there? Or what seems to be factory edge. It's sharp. Very even throughout. Also, I appreciate this design where the choil comes out, and I know it's not anything revolutionary, anything new, but you can actually get a nice, smooth, sharpened edge all the way up to here, and you still have that front finger choil, should you choose to use it. Unlike, that's one of my gripes about the SNG, right? Yes, they have that sharpening notch, but it's like, yo, dog, heard you like sharpening choil, so we put a sharpening choil on your sharpening choil. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's just way too much. Way too much. I would have just, come on, do it like this. There's no reason it couldn't have been done like this. give you a little bit more cutting edge, you know. So I just can't help but to make these comparisons here. And I want to talk about the clip real quick. While we have these out, just for size, here is a pair of 2 next to it. I had 2 more things I want to go over the clip. And also one more concern I had about the Tang. And I know this is a super long review. I'm sorry, but not sorry. I have some notes, but if you guys are going to invest $300 brand new into these knives, and being that they're limited to $300, who knows what this is going on in the aftermarket? I don't know. I don't know what it's doing on the aftermarket right now. But here's some nice comparisons. I thought you got it against the Spyderco Bowie. And then, of course, your pair 2. Anytime you start talking a lot of handle, little blade, I can't help but to bring these 2 knives out, right? This is kind of along the same idea here. So big handle, a lot of leverage, flat ground blades. Obviously, these are completely different knives. But there you go. If you're going to hunt one of these guys down, you know, you got your choil, you know, different knives. But I would think if you like the pair 2 and the design philosophy around it, you might really like this as well. We just seen the SNG for about 10 minutes in a row. And why do I have the large Sebenza out here? Well, let's get into it. This knife seems extremely well made. I had no issues. Well, let's bring this out just real quick. There's a Spyderco Delica. Nowhere near the same knives, but just for size comparisons. There you go. All right. Knife is really well made. I had no problems at all with it. If I was to say, how is this knife going to hold up? Excuse me. It's kind of hard to talk for 20 minutes in a row. How's this knife going to hold up 10 years from now? If I give this to my father, you know, and he wasn't completely into knives, and he just loved this knife, and this is the knife that he carried and used for the rest of his life. The only little tiny concern that I might have with this, and you have to keep in mind, Viper knives really knows what they're doing, apparently, right? Look how there's no gaps or anything around here. All the milling is beautiful. The one thing that I might question is check out the tang of the lockup here. So I had to bring out the King, the Sebenza. Man, if we could get a good look at this. Look how ramped that is. Generally, I would not like that type of interface on a lockup. But right now, it's working great. You can see because of the strong tension. You can see right there. See how dished out that is? The owner of this knife here has to put Sharpie on that due to how strong this tension is. You know, maybe that's how they're getting that super solid lockup. Maybe that's how they're getting this really well done detent. I apologize, still playing with this focus here. You know, you can tell there's a lot of tension on this, but it doesn't have much tension when you flip it. So I wouldn't say that they need to change anything on this knife, but to me, I don't like seeing this ramped lockup because this looked a lot like Strider's looked like 5 years ago. Now Strider has even come around and they are doing a flat face on your tang. Again, that is really nitpicking, and they probably know more than not probably. They know more than I do. So, but I just have to be honest. Like, if you was to ask me exactly what I think, this is 25 minutes of exactly what I think about this knife. We have just a few more minutes to go on the pocket clip. You can see how it's engaged perfectly. I love that the full tang here is engaged. Well, the full liner is engaged right there. Much like, you know, any good frame lock, I feel should be so far engaged that this is all the way over the tang as much as it can be without being over more so. Here's the Strider. That's right where I like my lockup. Some people ask. Just for fun, I have a liner lock Emerson here too. Now, if you know Emerson, they are notorious for walking over a little bit, so that's probably perfect for me for an Emerson. Meanwhile, if you have an Emerson, you can see the difference in thickness here for the liners. Notice how the Emerson is not chamfered with a cutout anywhere down here. Notice that the GM2 does have some relief cuts right there to ease up the tension on this already thinnish lock bar. So that was the only thing, you know, for me it's like, yeah, when I was carrying and using this knife, beautiful. Just beautiful. Lockup didn't wiggle at all. There's no blade play in it. There's really nothing to worry about. But again, I would really like to see that a little bit thicker and definitely not with a relief cut there. But again, they've been making knives for a long time. And I don't think Jasper, Vox, or Jens Anso would do anything that they weren't comfortable with. And they, you know exactly what they're doing. So, all right, one more issue for me personally. Again, another little tiny little nitpick is, okay, this knife is right hand, tip up, carry only, correct? Or can you flip that clip? Can you flip the clip with that? I don't know. I should try it before I make this little rant. If you can... Oh, man, amateur hour. All right, I warned you. But if you can flip this clip, then this gripe is completely just erase it. I never said it. I apologize. I really should have seen if you can flip that clip, but I don't think you can, but maybe you can. So this is a one-piece pocket clip milled out. A lot of people are liking these style clips. Me personally, I don't. I haven't met many one-piece milled clips that I actually like to carry and use. And I'm more, if I can blend art with performance with the tool, I love that. But when the art comes at the sacrifice for performance, then that's where I'll have a little bit of a, I'd rather have it this way than that way. So this is where I stand on that, just so you know. This one-piece milled clip does look good, but has a little bit too much tension for me personally. And I know you could bend it out, right? And I understand that. But it's also paired up against this milled texture, this starburst texture. So this thing really grabs your pocket and then sandpapers it off right there, because that pinch point is so much on this. Where I hate to bring up cold steel in a giant mouse review, but if you ever get any cold steels with that super grippy G10 and a tight pocket clip, usually you need a combination of loosening up the pocket clip and then also sanding the texture off where the clip touches the handle, right? So I'm saying if this knife is a right hand, tip up only, then maybe they could have milled a flat spot underneath the clip there so it would be a little more friendly to go in and out of our pockets. Do you know what I'm saying? Because right now you can actually see, do you see that? That's like saw blades on your pocket. It would be nice if those 3 or 4 little bumps right in the middle here were just flat. And I guess that's something that you could do afterwards, but I don't know. I guess to me, I see it as a little bit of an oversight. But I also understand that some people will take the clip off this knife. I have a friend who will not carry a pocket clip on a knife. So if he was to take off the pocket clip and then it's got a flat spot in the middle of then he would be complaining about that. So it's very hard to make everybody happy, which I think kind of adds to the fun of the hobby. It's great to have so many different flavors of knives, so many different choices, and you just have to decide what you want to compromise. To me, personally, I do love this knife, but again, if we're going to go back to my theories and how I like to use knives, I would not purchase this knife. Might be a little bit of a strong statement. I do love it, but I don't see carrying around that thick of a blade and then have a thinner liner on there for the lock. Even though it is 100% secure, I just would rather have, a little more security to me. I mean, it may be a little harsh to say, but I have to tell you the truth. I'm super glad I got to carry and use it and handle it, experience it, and know what they're about. But I maybe would go with one of their frame locks, and they make those as well. This is the liner lock version. So I believe they have almost the same exact design with titanium frame lock on the other side. So that might be more of my speed. Um, I do like all the different ways that you can deploy this knife. So you can come underneath with that hole. And the way this hole is shaped, because it's circular on the front, when you put it in there and carry it around, it's not much different than a Spyderco hole. I carried and used this knife with bigger, thicker work gloves on. Had no problems at all unlocking it, opening it. And also, if you didn't notice, they do recess this handle just a bit above this handle to get to that liner lock easy. Some people are going to like that. Some people think that if you squeeze it and twist it enough, because this is a little bit lower than this, the show side scale, you might be prone to unlock it. I had no issues with that. I can't see that I ever would, but it's just something nice to point out. It is just dropped just a slight bit. Very thick through here, so there's no hot spots. I've had knives like that too, and this one doesn't have that problem, but sometimes they get so thin here that there's a little bit of a hot spot where that lock bar is cut out. Well, Strider does it, so this is 100% even here. You see what I'm saying? Anyways, that is 32 minutes, holy cow, of the Giant Mouse GM2. You probably got more than you bargained for if you're still sticking around. I really do appreciate you guys. I love making these videos, and with this new lighting area that I have, I'm going to be making a lot more of them. And then I think this was a good idea too. Taking in a loaner knife that maybe I wouldn't have purchased, but is a great knife. So meanwhile, this might be somebody's dream knife out there. You know what I mean? So, or maybe it'll point more people towards the frame lock version. I have no idea. But at 300 pieces, I think they're already sold out. They're going to be hard to get. Very, very well made. You can see the blades dead centered. And the M390 is no joke. I mean, it held a wonderful edge. It cut great too. So it's very thin behind the edge. Well, relatively thin for how thick the blade is. You can see the grinds are very symmetrical on both sides. See how that ends exactly there. That ends exactly there. Swedge ends right there. Right there. Very beautiful. I love this blade shape, and it is a very attractive knife. So good job. Despite my little bit of nitpicks with this knife, it is a wonderful knife. And the details on it are outstanding, especially when you talk about the rounded area here, the flipper tab shape and all that. And then how this and all this is flush. Yep, I like it a lot. All right, guys, that's it. See if we get upside down flip and we'll get out of here. Yep. See ya.